The thunder of distant hooves was the only warning Zara Ellis had as she frantically stuffed the last of her belongings into a small satchel. Her stepfather's arranged marriage scheme would commence in mere hours, binding her to a man thrice her age, a wealthy cattle baron who had purchased her future as easily as he might acquire another head of livestock. Montana Territory, 1878. Summer heat shimmered above the dusty streets of Promise Creek as Zara peered through the lace curtains of her stepfather's home. A large wagon waited outside, already loaded with trunks containing a trousseau she hadn't chosen. The driver, a grim-faced man with yellowed teeth, checked his pocket watch impatiently. In just 15 minutes, she would be forced to board that wagon for a 3-day journey to her unwanted groom's ranch. Tears stung her eyes as she tucked a small daguerreotype of her deceased mother into her pocket. At 22, Zara had fought against Vernon Ellis's schemes for years, but this time he had outwitted her. When her mother died 2 years ago, leaving her alone with a stepfather who saw her as nothing more than a business opportunity, Zara had remained optimistic. She'd believed that somehow she would escape this fate. Now, with the marriage contract signed and her future sold, that hope was dwindling. "Time to go, girl," Vernon called, his boots heavy on the wooden floorboards. "Richard Hargrove paid good money for you. A fine match, 50 years old with his own ranch, and not a wife to share it with. You should be grateful." "I'll never be grateful for being sold like cattle," Zara replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Her green eyes flashed with defiance, the only inheritance from her fiery Irish mother besides her thick auburn hair. "Mother would be ashamed of what you've done." Vernon's face darkened as he grabbed her arm. "Your mother left me with debts and a headstrong girl too proud for her own good. Mr. Hargrove's wagon is waiting. You'll be on it, whether you walk out that door or I carry you." The sound of commotion outside drew their attention. Shouts and the startled whinnying of horses drifted through the open window. Vernon released his grip on Zara's arm and strode to the door, yanking it open. In the street outside stood the most imposing figure Zara had ever seen. Astride a magnificent black stallion was a man whose presence commanded attention. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore a dark hat pulled low over his eyes, but she could see his jaw was set in determination. His duster coat billowed slightly in the breeze as he faced down the wagon driver and 2 other men. "That wagon isn't going anywhere today," the stranger announced, his voice carrying clearly across the street. "This is none of your business, mister," the driver spat. "We've got a schedule to keep." The rider dismounted with fluid grace that belied his size. "I'm making it my business." His hand rested casually near his holstered pistol. Vernon stepped onto the porch, his face flushed with anger. "Who do you think you are, interfering with my affairs? That wagon is carrying my stepdaughter to her fiancé." The stranger's gaze swept past Vernon to where Zara stood framed in the doorway. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. "Is that so?" he asked, never breaking eye contact with her. "The lady doesn't appear eager for her journey." "Adam Archer," the man introduced himself, tipping his hat slightly. "And I believe the lady should speak for herself." Zara felt a surge of courage as she stepped forward. "I have no desire to be on that wagon, Mr. Archer. I'm being sent to marry a man I've never met and did not choose." Vernon's face turned an alarming shade of purple. "This is outrageous! Sheriff!" he bellowed, looking around for the town lawman. "Arrest this man for interference." Adam Archer didn't flinch. "The sheriff's busy with a dispute at the saloon. Might be a while before he sorts that out." A slight smile played at the corner of his mouth. "I'm afraid your wagon's got a problem too." As if on cue, one of the wagon's wheels groaned and collapsed, the spokes splintering as the axle hit the ground. The driver jumped back, cursing. "Appears someone's been tampering with your transportation," Adam observed mildly. "Might take a day or two to fix properly." Vernon lunged forward, but Adam sidestepped him easily. "Miss," he called to Zara, "if you're of age and unconsenting to this arrangement, there's nothing legally binding you to that wagon or the man at the end of its journey." Zara's heart pounded as she realized what he was offering, a chance at freedom. She clutched her small satchel tighter. "I am 22 years old, Mr. Archer, and I have never consented to this match." "You ungrateful," Vernon began, but fell silent when Adam's hand moved slightly closer to his pistol. "Then I suggest you make your choice now, Miss Ellis," Adam said calmly. In that moment, Zara knew what her mother would want her to do. With a deep breath, she walked down the porch steps, past her spluttering stepfather, and toward the tall stranger and his magnificent horse. "I choose not to be on that wagon," she declared, her voice strong despite her trembling hands. Adam's eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. "Then that's settled." He turned to Vernon. "You'll want to send word to Mr. Hargrove that the arrangement is off." "You can't do this," Vernon protested. "I've taken his money." "Then I suggest you return it," Adam replied evenly. "Or explain to him why you couldn't deliver what you promised." He turned back to Zara. "Do you have somewhere safe to go, Miss Ellis?" Zara hesitated, the reality of her impulsive decision setting in. She had some savings, but no immediate place to stay. Not exactly." Adam nodded thoughtfully. "My sister runs a boarding house at the edge of town. Respectable place for a lady. I can escort you there, if you wish." Relief washed over her. "That would be most appreciated, Mr. Archer." Vernon took a threatening step forward. "You'll regret this, Zara, and you," he pointed at Adam. "You've made an enemy today." Adam helped Zara mount his horse before swinging up behind her. "Wouldn't be the first time," he replied coolly. With a gentle nudge to his horse's flanks, they started down the street, leaving Vernon Ellis and his broken wagon behind. The warmth of Adam's chest against her back made Zara acutely aware of the impropriety of their position, but there was something undeniably comforting about his presence. As they rode through town, curious eyes followed them, and Zara knew that by nightfall, gossip about her escape would be spreading like wildfire. "Thank you," she said softly. "But why did you help me? You don't even know me?" Adam was quiet for a moment. "Let's just say I recognize the look of someone being forced down a path they didn't choose." His voice carried a weight that suggested personal experience. "No one deserves that fate." The afternoon sun cast long shadows as they approached a neat two-story building at the edge of town. A wooden sign reading Archer House swung gently in the breeze. "My sister Abigail runs this place," Adam explained as he helped Zara dismount. "It's clean, safe, and she doesn't tolerate gossip. You can stay here while you figure out your next move." Before they reached the door, it swung open to reveal a petite woman with the same striking blue eyes as Adam. Her brown hair was neatly pinned up, and her expression shifted from surprise to curiosity as she took in the scene before her. "Adam Archer, what have you gone and done now?" she asked, though there was affection in her tone. "Abby, this is Miss Zara Ellis. She needs a room for a while." Adam's tone suggested there was more to the story than he was letting on. Abigail's shrewd gaze assessed Zara quickly. "Vernon Ellis's stepdaughter? The one he's been crowing about marrying off to that rancher up north?" At Zara's shocked expression, she smiled kindly. "Small town, honey. News travels." "I'm not going," Zara stated firmly, "and I can pay for my room." Abigail's expression softened. "I expect you can. Come on in then. I've got a nice room at the back with a view of the garden." She glanced at her brother. "And you? Staying for supper, or heading back to your place?" Adam removed his hat, revealing thick dark hair that curled slightly at the ends. "I might stay in town a day or two. Vernon Ellis isn't the kind of man who takes defeat graciously." Zara felt a rush of gratitude, followed by unease. "I don't want to cause trouble for either of you." Adam and Abigail exchanged a look that suggested this wasn't their first encounter with trouble. "Trouble's what happens when good people do nothing, Miss Ellis," Adam said simply. "Besides, I've been looking for an excuse to stay in town for a spell. Got some business to attend to." As Abigail showed Zara to her room, the enormity of what she'd done began to sink in. She was free for now. But she had no doubt Vernon would try to reclaim what he considered his property. And the mysterious cowboy who had interceded on her behalf? Zara couldn't help but wonder what had really motivated his gallant rescue. Little did she know that Adam Archer had his own reasons for being in Promise Creek. Reasons that would soon entangle their fates in ways neither of them could predict. The room Abigail provided was small but comfortable, with a narrow bed, a washstand with a porcelain basin, and a window that overlooked a surprisingly lush garden. After weeks of tension and fear, the simple space felt like a sanctuary to Zara. "Supper's at 6, Abigail informed her. "There are 3 other boarders, all ladies. Mrs. Whitman teaches at the schoolhouse, Miss Jenkins works at the mercantile, and Miss Holloway is our new telegraph operator." She paused, studying Zara's face. "They're good people. Discreet." Zara sat on the edge of the bed. "Your brother. Is he always so impulsive, heroic, stubborn as a mule?" Abigail laughed softly. "Yes, to all 3. Adam's got a strong sense of justice. Too strong sometimes." Her expression grew serious. "But he's a good man. One of the best." After Abigail left, Zara unpacked her meager belongings. Among them was a small leather-bound journal her mother had given her, filled with pressed wildflowers and her own sketches. She had always found solace in drawing, capturing the beauty of the Montana landscape that had been her home since childhood. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Adam standing there, hat in hands. "Miss Ellis, I wanted to make sure you were settling in all right. Please, call me Zara. And yes, your sister has been very kind." Adam nodded, seeming uncharacteristically hesitant. "I should tell you, I've sent word to Sheriff Daniels about your situation. He's a fair man, and he'll want to hear your side of things if Vernon makes any claims." "Thank you." Zara studied his face, noting the small scar that ran through his right eyebrow and the way his eyes seemed to shift between blue and gray depending on the light. "You still haven't told me why you really helped me today." Adam leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. "I was riding past when I overheard the wagon driver talking about delivering Vernon's stepdaughter to Hargrove. I know Hargrove's reputation. No woman deserves to be his wife, especially not against her will." "You know Richard Hargrove?" Zara asked, surprised. A shadow passed over Adam's face. "We've crossed paths. He's not a good man, Zara. What your stepfather was doing selling you to him, it wasn't right." Before she could press further, the dinner bell rang downstairs. "We should join the others," Adam said, straightening. "Abby doesn't tolerate tardiness at her table." The dining room was warm and inviting, with a polished oak table set for 6. The other boarders greeted Zara with curious but friendly smiles. Mrs. Whitman, a plump woman in her 40s with kind eyes, patted the chair beside her. "Come sit by me, dear. New faces are always welcome." Throughout the meal, Zara found herself constantly aware of Adam's presence across the table. He spoke little but watched everything with keen attention. When the conversation turned to her, he skillfully redirected it, sensing her discomfort at being the center of attention. After dinner, Adam excused himself, saying he had matters to attend to in town. As he donned his hat at the door, Zara followed him. "Will I see you tomorrow?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Adam's expression softened. "I'll be around, Miss Ellis. Try to get some rest. Tomorrow's a new day with new choices all yours to make." As she watched him walk into the gathering dusk, Zara couldn't help but feel that her life had irrevocably changed course. The wagon that was meant to carry her to a fate she dreaded had been stopped by a man she barely knew, yet somehow trusted. For the first time in years, she felt the stirrings of hope. Morning brought chaos to Promise Creek. Zara had barely finished dressing when Abigail burst into her room, her normally composed demeanor visibly shaken. "Vernon's at the sheriff's office claiming Adam kidnapped you and destroyed his property," she said breathlessly. "Sheriff Daniels sent a deputy to fetch both of you." Fear clutched at Zara's heart. "But that's absurd. I went willingly." "Vernon's saying you're not in your right mind, that you've been distressed since your mother's passing and aren't capable of making decisions for yourself." Anger replaced Zara's fear. "I'm perfectly sound of mind. My only distress comes from being treated like property." They hurried to the sheriff's office, a small but solidly built structure near the center of town. Inside, they found Adam already seated across from Sheriff Daniels, a weathered man with graying temples and perceptive eyes. Vernon stood nearby, his face triumphant. "Ah, here she is now," Vernon exclaimed. "You can see for yourself how confused she is. Poor girl hasn't been the same since her mother died." Sheriff Daniels turned to Zara. "Miss Ellis, your stepfather has made some serious claims. Says Mr. Archer here interfered with your arranged marriage and damaged the wagon that was to take you to your fiancé." Zara drew herself up to her full height. "Sheriff Daniels, I am 22 years old and of sound mind. I never agreed to marry Richard Hargrove. My stepfather arranged it without my consent, and I went with Mr. Archer willingly to escape a forced marriage." The sheriff studied her carefully. "And the damaged wagon?" Adam shifted in his chair. "The wheel was already compromised when I arrived. Poor maintenance, most likely." Vernon's face reddened. "That's a lie. He sabotaged it." "Did anyone witness Mr. Archer tampering with the wagon?" Sheriff Daniels asked pointedly. Vernon sputtered but couldn't produce a witness. The sheriff sighed heavily. "Vernon, from what I can see, you have no legal claim over your adult stepdaughter. As for the wagon, without witnesses, it's your word against Mr. Archer's." "What about Hargrove's money?" Vernon demanded. "He paid a considerable sum for her hand." Sheriff Daniels' expression hardened. "Buying and selling people hasn't been legal in this country for some time, Ellis. I suggest you return Mr. Hargrove's money and count yourself lucky I don't look further into your business dealings." Vernon pointed a trembling finger at Zara. "This isn't over. Hargrove won't take this lying down." His gaze shifted to Adam. "And you've made an enemy today." As Vernon stormed out, Sheriff Daniels turned to Adam. "You know who you're dealing with, Archer? Richard Hargrove isn't a man who accepts defeat graciously." Adam nodded grimly. "I'm aware." The sheriff rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "And you're still determined to stay in Promise Creek?" "More than ever," Adam replied, his gaze briefly meeting Zara's. Outside the sheriff's office, Zara finally released the breath she'd been holding. "Thank you for standing by me." Adam's expression was serious. Vernon wasn't bluffing. "Hargrove will hear about this, and he'll come looking." "Then I should leave town," Zara said, her mind racing. "I have some savings. I could take the stagecoach to Helena, find work there." "Running won't solve this," Adam interrupted gently. "Hargrove has connections throughout the territory, and you've done nothing wrong that you should have to flee." Abigail, who had been silent until now, touched her brother's arm. "Adam, perhaps it's time to tell her." A shadow crossed his face. "Not yet." "Tell me what?" Zara looked between them, sensing an undercurrent of tension. "It's complicated," Adam said after a pause. "But I promise you this, I won't let Hargrove or Vernon Ellis harm you." The certainty in his voice was reassuring, but it also deepened the mystery surrounding him. Why was this man, a stranger until yesterday, so invested in her safety? "I think," Zara said carefully, "that if I'm trusting you with my life, I deserve to know why you're really in Promise Creek, Mr. Archer." Adam's jaw tightened. "Fair enough. But not here." He looked around the bustling street. Meet me at Abby's at sundown. We'll talk then. The hours until sundown crawled by with agonizing slowness. Zara tried to distract herself by helping Abigail with chores around the boarding house, but her mind kept circling back to Adam Archer and his mysterious connection to Richard Hargrove. When Adam finally arrived, the sun was setting in a blaze of orange and pink. Abigail discreetly withdrew to the kitchen, leaving them alone in the small parlor. Adam sat across from Zara, his hat resting on his knee. For a moment, he seemed to struggle with where to begin. 4 years ago, he finally said, my younger sister Clara was married off to Richard Hargrove. She was 18, naive, and our father had gambling debts. His voice remained steady, but Zara could see the pain in his eyes. I was working as a trail guide in Colorado at the time. By the time I returned home, the marriage had already taken place. Zara's heart sank. What happened to her? Hargrove is a cruel man who hides his true nature behind wealth and influence. Clara endured 2 years of his treatment. Adam's knuckles whitened as his hands clenched. When I finally found out what was happening, I went to bring her home. I was too late. She died the day before I arrived at his ranch. Oh, Adam, Zara whispered, instinctively reaching out to touch his hand. Hargrove claimed it was a riding accident. The local doctor in Hargrove's pocket confirmed it. But one of the ranch hands told me differently. She'd tried to escape. And Hargrove. Adam couldn't finish the sentence. That's why you stopped the wagon, Zara realized. You were preventing history from repeating itself. Adam nodded, his eyes meeting hers. When I heard about Vernon's arrangement, I couldn't stand by and watch another woman suffer Clara's fate. But there's more to it than that. He took a deep breath. I've spent the last 2 years gathering evidence against Hargrove, testimonies from former employees, records of his dealings. I'm close to having enough to bring to the territorial judge. Understanding dawned on Zara. And now I've complicated things by becoming another reason for him to come after you. You've done nothing wrong, Adam insisted. If anything, you've given me an even stronger reason to see this through. The intensity in his gaze made her heart quicken. There was something unspoken passing between them, a connection that had formed in the span of just 2 days. What happens now? She asked softly. Now, Adam said, his expression resolute. We prepare. Hargrove will come to Promise Creek, either himself or through hired men. When he does, we'll be ready. A mixture of fear and determination surged through Zara. I won't be a passive participant in my own life anymore, Adam. If we're facing this threat, we're facing it together. A smile, the first real one she'd seen from him, transformed Adam's face. I wouldn't have it any other way. As they sat in the gathering darkness, the oil lamp between them casting a warm glow, Zara felt an unfamiliar emotion take root. It wasn't just gratitude for his protection or admiration for his principles. It was something deeper, something that made her simultaneously vulnerable and strong. It was the beginning of love, blooming in the most unexpected of circumstances. The following days established a new rhythm to Zara's life. She moved about Promise Creek with caution, but refused to hide away completely. Word of her situation had spread, and to her surprise, many townspeople offered quiet support. The mercantile owner extended credit when she purchased fabric to make a new dress. The librarian invited her to help organize books 3 afternoons a week, providing her with a small income. Adam divided his time between the Archer homestead outside town and the boarding house, where he often joined them for meals. Under Abigail's watchful eye, they maintained proper decorum, but Zara found herself increasingly drawn to him. It wasn't just his physical strength or his protective nature. It was the glimpses of tenderness she saw when he helped Mrs. Whitman carry her heavy books, or the quiet intelligence he revealed during their evening conversations. One afternoon, while helping Abigail in the garden, Zara broached the subject that had been on her mind. Adam mentioned a homestead. Do you and he run it together? Abigail smiled as she carefully pruned a rosebush. The land's been in our family for 15 years. Adam built the cabin himself after returning from the war. When I decided to open this boarding house, he stayed out there. Says he prefers the quiet. He fought in the war? Zara asked, surprised. Joined up at 17, came back at 21 with that scar over his eyebrow and a quieter spirit. He doesn't talk about it much. Abigail glanced at Zara. He's different since he met you, you know. There's a light in his eyes I haven't seen in years. Heat rose to Zara's cheeks. I'm just grateful for his help. Abigail's knowing look suggested she saw through the pretense. Gratitude doesn't make a person ride into town every day just to make sure you've eaten lunch. Before Zara could respond, they heard hoofbeats approaching. Adam appeared at the garden gate, his expression unusually grim. Abby. Zara. He greeted them tersely. I've just heard from a friend who works at Hargrove's ranch. He's on his way to Promise Creek, should arrive within 2 days. Zara's stomach clenched with fear. He's coming himself? Adam nodded. With 3 of his men. They're saying it's just business in town, but my friend overheard Hargrove mention your name. Abigail set down her pruning shears. She can't stay here. It's the first place they'll look. I've thought of that, Adam replied. I'm taking Zara to the homestead tonight. It's remote, defensible, and few people know of its exact location. I won't put you in danger, Zara protested. This is my problem. It's our problem, Adam interrupted firmly. And I'm not asking, Zara. Hargrove is dangerous, especially when he feels his pride has been wounded. Despite her independent nature, Zara recognized the wisdom in his plan. Very well. When do we leave? Dusk. Pack only what you need. Abby will spread word that you've taken the stage to Helena. As Zara hurried to gather her belongings, a mixture of fear and anticipation coursed through her. The thought of staying at Adam's homestead, away from prying eyes, sent her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with danger. The journey to the Archer homestead took them through winding trails and dense pine forests. Zara rode behind Adam on his stallion, her arms wrapped around his waist for stability. The closeness was both thrilling and unsettling. Even through his coat, she could feel the solid warmth of him, and occasionally his hand would cover hers when the trail became particularly rough. Night had fallen completely by the time they reached a small clearing. In the moonlight, Zara could make out the silhouette of a sturdy log cabin with a stone chimney. A small barn stood nearby, and a creek bubbled somewhere in the darkness. It's not much, Adam said as he helped her dismount, but it's solid and warm. Inside, the cabin was simple but comfortable. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with a wooden table and chairs before it. A curtain partially separated the sleeping area from the main room. Everything was immaculately clean, with the faint scent of pine and wood smoke in the air. You live here alone? Zara asked as Adam lit a lamp. Just me and occasionally Abby when she needs a break from town. He moved to the fireplace, quickly building a fire. You can take the bed. I'll sleep by the fire. The domesticity of the situation suddenly struck Zara. Here she was, alone in a remote cabin with a man she'd known less than a week. By all social conventions, her reputation was already compromised beyond repair. Strangely, the thought bothered her less than it should have. I couldn't take your bed, she protested. You can, and you will, Adam replied, his tone leaving no room for argument. My mother raised me better than to let a lady sleep on the floor. As the fire caught and spread its warmth through the cabin, Adam prepared a simple meal of coffee, beans, and cornbread. They ate in companionable silence, both lost in their own thoughts about what the coming days might bring. Tell me about your mother, Adam said suddenly. Abby mentioned she passed 2 years ago. Zara smiled at the memory. Moira Ellis was a force of nature. She came from Ireland as a girl, worked as a teacher, and never lost her love of learning. She taught me to read, to draw, to stand up for myself. Her smile faded. She married Vernon when I was 12. I think she was lonely after my father died, and Vernon seemed respectable enough then. And your father? Thomas Ellis. He was a surveyor for the railroad. Died of fever when I was 10. Zara traced patterns on the wooden table. Mother always said I inherited his steady hands and eye for detail. I barely remember him now, just the feeling of being safe when he was around. Adam nodded in understanding. That feeling of safety, it's a precious thing. What about your parents? Zara asked. A shadow crossed his face. Father died 3 years ago. Liver gave out from too much whiskey. Mother passed when Clara and I were young. Abby practically raised us after that. And yet, you all turned out rather well, Zara observed with a small smile. Abby made sure of that, Adam replied, a hint of warmth returning to his eyes. After they finished eating, an awkward moment ensued as Zara realized she would need to prepare for bed. Sensing her discomfort, Adam grabbed his coat. I'll check on the horse, he said. Take your time. When he returned, Zara had changed into her nightgown and wrapper, her hair loosely braided for sleep. She sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. Adam cleared his throat. If you're comfortable, I'll turn in as well. He arranged blankets near the fire, removed his boots, and stretched out, his long frame barely contained by the makeshift bed. Zara retreated to the curtained area, but sleep eluded her. The events of the past week swirled in her mind, along with the unsettling awareness of Adam just a few feet away. Adam? She called softly, unsure if he was still awake. Yes? His reply was immediate. Thank you. Not just for the protection, but for giving me choices when others would take them away. There was a pause before he answered. Everyone deserves the right to choose their own path, Zara. Even if that path leads to danger? Especially then. His voice grew softer. The most worthwhile journeys often do. In the darkness, Zara smiled. Good night, Adam Archer. Good night, Zara Ellis. As she drifted towards sleep, Zara realized that for the first time since her mother died, she felt truly safe. The wagon that had been meant to carry her to a loveless future had been stopped, and in its place, an unexpected journey had begun, one that might just lead to the very thing she had never dared hope for. Love freely given and received. Dawn broke with a gentle rain pattering against the cabin's roof. Zara woke to find Adam already up. Coffee brewing on the small cast-iron stove. He'd brought in fresh water and stoked the fire back to life. You sleep well? He asked, handing her a steaming cup. Zara nodded, accepting the coffee gratefully. Better than I have in months. She hesitated, then added, No nightmares. Adam's expression softened. Good. They settled into a surprisingly comfortable routine over breakfast. Adam explained that his property covered nearly 40 acres, mostly wooded with a stream running through it and small meadows where he kept a few horses. I'd like to show you around later if the rain lets up, he offered. I'd like that, Zara replied, surprised by how much she meant it. The rain did ease by mid-morning, leaving the forest glistening and fragrant. Adam saddled 2 horses, and they rode slowly through the property. Zara marveled at the beauty of the land, the towering pines, the wildflowers pushing through the undergrowth, the occasional glimpse of deer between the trees. It's breathtaking, she said, as they paused in a small clearing. Why did you choose to live so far from town? Adam gazed out over the landscape. After the war, I couldn't stand being around too many people. Needed space to breathe, to think. This land reminded me that there was still beauty in the world. You don't speak much about the war, Zara observed carefully. Not much to say that folks want to hear. His jaw tightened. Saw too many good men die for causes they barely understood. came back different. We all have our battles, Adam, Zara said softly. Some are just more visible than others. He looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing something new. You're not what I expected, Zara Ellis. Oh? And what did you expect? A small smile played at his lips. Someone less perceptive. They continued their ride, Adam pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the land. Near a small pond surrounded by aspens, they stopped to rest the horses. I used to draw places like this, Zara said, taking in the peaceful scene. Mother always encouraged my sketching, said I had a gift for capturing the essence of things. You're an artist? Adam sounded surprised. Hardly that grand, just sketches mostly. It's been some time since I've had the heart for it. Adam studied her for a moment. There are pencils and paper in the cabin. You should draw again, if it brings you joy. The simple encouragement touched her deeply. Vernon had always dismissed her art as a waste of time, a frivolous pursuit with no practical value. Perhaps I will, she murmured. They were heading back to the cabin when Adam suddenly reined his horse to a stop, his posture alert. Zara followed his gaze but saw nothing unusual among the trees. What is it? She whispered. Not sure. Thought I saw movement. His hand moved to the rifle in his saddle holster. Let's get back. They quickened their pace, Adam scanning the woods continuously. When they reached the cabin, he helped her dismount, his manner suddenly brisk and professional. Stay inside, he instructed. I'm going to check the perimeter. Fear clutched at Zara's heart. You think someone followed us? Probably nothing, he said, but his eyes told a different story. Just being cautious. While Adam circled the property, Zara paced the cabin floor, jumping at every sound. When he finally returned, the relief that flooded through her was so intense it left her lightheaded. Anything? She asked anxiously. No sign of anyone, he replied, though he still looked troubled. But we should be prepared. Hargrove will have reached Promise Creek by now. That evening, as they sat before the fire, Adam cleaned his weapons with methodical precision, while Zara sketched in a small notebook he'd provided. The domesticity of the scene belied the tension that hummed beneath the surface. What will you do when this is over? Zara asked suddenly, setting down her pencil. Adam paused, considering the question. Continue gathering evidence against Hargrove. See justice done for Clara. And after that? He looked up, meeting her gaze. Haven't thought that far ahead. What about you? Zara traced the edge of her notebook. I've been saving to open a small shop. Selling my sketches, maybe teaching drawing to children. She smiled wryly. Seems a foolish dream now. Not foolish at all, Adam countered. Dreams keep us going when nothing else does. Their eyes held for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Zara felt a blush rise to her cheeks and looked away first. We should turn in, Adam said, his voice slightly rough. Tomorrow I need to ride into town for supplies and to check with Abby for news. Zara's head snapped up. I'm coming with you. It's not safe. I won't be left behind like some helpless child, she interrupted firmly. If Hargrove is in Promise Creek, I want to know. I need to face this, Adam. He studied her determined expression and finally nodded. All right, but you stay close to me, and we don't linger. That night, as Zara lay in Adam's bed, listening to his steady breathing from his place near the fire, she realized how dramatically her life had changed in just 1 week. The forced marriage she had dreaded now seemed like a distant nightmare, replaced by... What? She wasn't naive enough to build castles in the air. Adam had rescued her out of principle, not passion. Yet she couldn't deny the connection growing between them, or the way her heart quickened when he looked at her. With a sigh, she turned onto her side. Whatever came next, confrontation with Hargrove, rebuilding her life, Finding her own path, she would face it with courage. Adam had given her that gift, along with her freedom. For now, it was enough. They rode into Promise Creek shortly after dawn, taking a roundabout path to avoid being seen. The town was just waking up, shopkeepers sweeping their storefronts, the blacksmith already at work, his hammer ringing against metal. Adam led them to the back entrance of the boarding house, where Abigail was hanging laundry. Her face registered relief when she saw them. "Thank goodness you're safe," she said, ushering them inside. "Hargrove arrived yesterday with 3 men. They've been asking questions all over town." Adam's expression darkened. "What kind of questions?" "About Zara, about you, where you might have gone." Abigail glanced nervously at the window. "Vernon's been with them, playing the concerned stepfather. Sheriff Daniels is watching the situation, but he can only do so much." "Has Hargrove made any direct threats?" Zara asked. Abigail shook her head. "Not openly. But one of his men got drunk at the saloon last night and mentioned teaching a lesson to the cowboy who stole the boss's bride." Adam's jaw tightened. "We shouldn't have come." "No, it was necessary," Abigail insisted. "I have something for you." She hurried to a cabinet and returned with a leather portfolio. "This arrived by special messenger yesterday, from Judge Parker's office." Adam opened it eagerly, scanning the documents inside. A slow smile spread across his face. "It's an arrest warrant for Hargrove. The judge found the evidence compelling enough to act." Hope surged through Zara. "So it's over?" "Not quite," Adam cautioned. "The warrant needs to be served, and Hargrove won't go quietly. But this changes things. Now we have the law explicitly on our side." They were discussing next steps when a commotion outside drew their attention. Looking through the window, Zara saw Richard Hargrove for the first time. He was a tall man with silver at his temples, expensively dressed and commanding in his bearing. There was nothing outwardly threatening about him, which made the cold calculation in his eyes all the more chilling. With him were Vernon and 3 rough-looking men, clearly hired guns. They were speaking to a woman who pointed directly at the boarding house. "They know we're here," Zara whispered, her heart racing. Adam moved quickly, gathering their few supplies. "We need to leave, now, out the back." But they were too late. Heavy footsteps sounded on the porch, followed by a sharp knock. "Abigail Archer," Hargrove's cultured voice carried clearly. "I believe you're harboring my fiancée. I'd like to speak with her." Abigail's eyes widened in fear, but she squared her shoulders. "Stall them," Adam instructed in a low voice. "Zara and I will slip out the back." "No," Zara said firmly. "I'm tired of running. This ends now." Before either of the Archers could stop her, she moved to the door and opened it. "I'm not your fiancé, Mr. Hargrove. I never was." Hargrove's surprise quickly gave way to a calculating smile. "Miss Ellis, a pleasure to finally meet you. Your stepfather has been most concerned about your welfare." Vernon stepped forward, his expression a mixture of relief and anger. "Zara, thank God you're safe. This man," he gestured at Adam, who now stood protectively at Zara's side, "has filled your head with nonsense." "The only nonsense is your claim to have any authority over me," Zara replied coldly. "I am of age and sound mind, and I refuse to be sold like cattle to a man I've never met." Hargrove's smile never wavered, but his eyes hardened. Such spirit. I admire that in a woman. He turned to Adam. "Mr. Archer, I believe. We have a mutual acquaintance. My late wife was your sister, I understand." The tension in the air thickened. Adam's hand moved closer to his pistol. "She wasn't just my sister, Hargrove. She was a young woman you abused and ultimately killed." Hargrove's men tensed, hands hovering near their weapons. Vernon looked between them in confusion. "What's this nonsense?" he demanded. "Your business partner has a history of mistreating his wives," Adam said, his voice steady despite his evident rage. His last one, my sister died under suspicious circumstances, and now he's come for Zara. Hargrove sighed, as if dealing with unreasonable children. These are serious and unfounded accusations, Mr. Archer. I've been patient because I understand grief can warp a man's mind, but my patience has limits. So does the law's, Adam replied, reaching slowly into his coat to produce the warrant. Judge Parker has issued a warrant for your arrest, Hargrove, for the murder of Clara Archer. For the first time, Hargrove's composure slipped. This is outrageous. Vernon, are you going to stand for this? Vernon looked uncertain, his gaze darting between Hargrove and the warrant in Adam's hand. I had no idea about any of this, Richard. Of course not, Hargrove snapped. Because it's fabricated. This man wants your stepdaughter for himself and will say anything to achieve that end. That's not true, Zara interjected. Adam rescued me from a fate I didn't choose. He's been nothing but honorable. One of Hargrove's men shifted, his hand moving toward his gun. Boss, we should leave. Deal with this later. In that moment, Sheriff Daniels appeared behind them, his deputy at his side. Nobody's leaving, he announced. Mr. Hargrove, I need to see you at my office regarding this warrant. What happened next unfolded with terrifying speed. Hargrove lunged forward, grabbing Zara and pulling her against him as a shield. She felt the cold press of metal against her temple. I think I'll be leaving after all, Hargrove said calmly. With my fiancé. Adam froze, his expression a mask of controlled fury. The sheriff and his deputy had drawn their weapons, but couldn't risk a shot with Zara in the way. Let her go, Hargrove, Adam said, his voice deadly quiet. This is between you and me. On the contrary, Hargrove replied. Miss Ellis is quite central to this situation. Now, everyone back away. We're going to walk to my carriage, and then we'll be on our way. Terror coursed through Zara, but beneath it was a steadying anger. She would not be this man's victim, would not allow him to use her to hurt Adam or evade justice for Clara. As Hargrove began forcing her backward down the porch steps, Zara caught Adam's eye. Something passed between them, understanding, trust. She gave the slightest nod. In one swift motion, Zara drove her elbow back into Hargrove's ribs with all her strength. The unexpected blow made him loosen his grip just enough for her to drop to the ground. A shot rang out, and Hargrove staggered backward, clutching his shoulder where Adam's bullet had struck him. Chaos erupted as Hargrove's men drew their weapons. The sheriff and his deputy returned fire. Vernon dove for cover behind a water trough. Adam pulled Zara to safety behind a pillar of the porch. When the gunfire ceased, 2 of Hargrove's men lay wounded. The third had surrendered, hands raised. Hargrove himself sat on the ground, blood seeping through his fingers as he pressed them to his shoulder, his face a mask of hatred. It's over, Hargrove, Sheriff Daniels said, approaching cautiously. You're under arrest for the murder of Clara Archer and the attempted kidnapping of Zara Ellis. As the sheriff and his deputy secured Hargrove and his men, Adam turned to Zara, his hands gently examining her for injuries. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice rough with concern. Zara shook her head, still trembling from the confrontation. I'm all right. She looked up into his face, seeing the fear and relief warring in his eyes. It's really over? It's over, Adam confirmed. He'll face justice for Clara, and he'll never threaten you again. Vernon approached them hesitantly. Zara, I had no idea about Hargrove's history. You must believe me. She regarded her stepfather coldly. Would it have mattered? You were selling me, Vernon. Your wife's daughter. Vernon at least had the grace to look ashamed. The ranch is failing. I needed the money. Then earn it honestly, she replied. I'm not your solution, and I never will be again. As Vernon slunk away, Adam kept his arm protectively around Zara's shoulders. The townspeople who had gathered to witness the commotion began to disperse, many nodding respectfully to Adam as they passed. "What happens now?" Zara asked quietly. Adam looked down at her, his expression softening. "That depends on you. You're free to choose your own path now." The realization washed over her like a warm wave. She was truly free from Vernon's schemes, from Hargrove's threats, from the wagon that would have carried her to a life of misery. And in that freedom, she knew exactly what she wanted. "My path," she said, holding Adam's gaze, "is no longer something I want to walk alone." The corners of his mouth lifted in a smile that reached his eyes, chasing away the shadows that had lingered there since she'd met him. "Neither do I." As he drew her closer, Zara knew that the journey ahead would not always be easy. There would be challenges to face, wounds to heal, trust to build. But for the first time, she was choosing her destination and the person with whom she would share the road. In the weeks that followed, Promise Creek slowly returned to normal. Richard Hargrove was transported to Helena to await trial, his threats of retaliation ringing hollow as evidence of his crimes mounted. Vernon Ellis, his reputation in tatters, sold what remained of his failing ranch and headed west, muttering about opportunities in California. Zara moved permanently into Abigail's boarding house, taking a small room with a window that caught the morning light perfect for the sketching she had begun again in earnest. 3 days a week, she helped at the library, and word of her artistic talent had spread, bringing commissions for portraits and landscapes from townspeople eager to support her. Adam divided his time between his homestead and town, visiting Zara daily. Their courtship, while the subject of considerable gossip, was conducted with proper decorum under Abigail's watchful eye. They took walks through town, shared meals with friends, and occasionally rode out to Adam's land, where Zara would sketch while he tended to chores. It was on one such afternoon, nearly 2 months after the confrontation with Hargrove, that Adam broached the subject they had both been circling. "I've been thinking," he said as they sat by the stream that ran through his property, "about the future." Zara looked up from her sketch, a rendering of the cabin with the mountains rising behind it. "Oh?" Adam seemed uncharacteristically nervous, running his hand through his hair. "This land, it's peaceful. Good soil, plenty of water. Room to build." "It's beautiful," Zara agreed, her heart beating faster at the direction of his thoughts. "It's too big for one person." He met her eyes directly. "But the right size for a family." Zara set down her sketchbook. "Adam Archer, are you asking me something specific?" A slow smile spread across his face as he reached for her hand. "I'm asking if you might consider making this your home, with me. As my wife." Joy bubbled up inside her, so intense it brought tears to her eyes. "I'd consider it very seriously," she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "In fact, I believe my answer would be yes." Adam's smile widened as he pulled her gently to her feet. "I didn't rescue you from one marriage only to trap you in another," he said softly. "I want you to be sure, Zara, to choose freely." "I am choosing," she said firmly. "I choose you, Adam. Not because you rescued me, but because of who you are, the man who stops wagons when they're headed in the wrong direction, who fights for justice even when it's dangerous, who sees me as I truly am." He touched her cheek gently. "And who do you see when you look at me? A man of honor. A man who's known loss but still believes in love. A man I want to build a future with." She smiled up at him. "My future." As Adam drew her into his arms, Zara knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. Not in a wagon bound for a future others had chosen for her, but here, with this man who had risked everything to give her the freedom to choose her own path. Their wedding took place in the autumn, when the aspens turned golden and the air carried the first hint of coming winter. It was a small ceremony in Promise Creek's newly built church, with Abigail standing proudly at Zara's side and the sheriff serving as Adam's best man. Zara wore a simple dress of ivory silk that she had designed herself, with lace at the collar and cuffs that Abigail had carefully sewn. In her hands, she carried a bouquet of late wildflowers gathered from the meadows around Adam's now their homestead. When she walked down the aisle and saw Adam waiting for her, his eyes filled with love and promise, she remembered the fear she had felt that day in Vernon's house, watching the wagon that would take her to a loveless marriage. How different this journey was, one chosen with her whole heart, leading to a man who valued her freedom as much as his own. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, his voice carrying through the small church, "we are gathered here to join this man and this woman in holy matrimony." As they spoke their vows, Adam's strong hands holding hers steady, Zara felt the last shadows of her past fade away. In their place was only light and hope, and the certainty that whatever roads lay ahead, they would travel them together. That evening, as Adam carried her across the threshold of their cabin, now brightened with curtains Abigail had sewn and Zara's sketches on the walls, Zara felt a sense of homecoming so profound it took her breath away. "Welcome home, Mrs. Archer," Adam said softly, setting her gently on her feet. Zara reached up to touch his face, marveling that this man, this good, honorable man, was now her husband. "It feels like I've been traveling toward this moment my whole life," she whispered. "Maybe you have." Adam's arms encircled her waist. "And maybe I've been waiting for you just as long." Their first kiss as husband and wife was tender, a promise of the lifetime they would share. As it deepened, becoming something more urgent, more passionate, Zara surrendered to the love she had found in the most unexpected of circumstances. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, the fire casting a warm glow across their new beginning, Adam traced the curve of her shoulder with gentle fingers. "I never thought I'd find happiness again after Clara died," he admitted quietly. "I was so consumed with bringing Hargrove to justice, I couldn't see beyond that mission." "And now?" Zara prompted, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Now I see a future. Our home, filled with children. Your sketches hanging in galleries in Helena, maybe even back east someday. Growing old together on this land." Zara smiled against his skin. "It sounds perfect." "It won't always be," Adam said pragmatically. "Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges in our path. Then we'll face them together," she replied simply, "just as we did with Hargrove." Adam's arms tightened around her. "Together," he agreed. As she drifted toward sleep in the safety of her husband's embrace, Zara thought about the wagon that had waited for her that day in Promise Creek, the journey she had been forced to accept, the future others had chosen for her. How fortunate she was that a brave cowboy had stopped those wheels, giving her the chance to choose a different path, one that had led her home. 2 years later, Zara sat on the porch of their expanded cabin, sketching the scene before her. Adam was showing their 1-year-old daughter Moira how to feed a carrot to his gentle mare. The little girl's delighted laughter carried across the yard as the horse's velvety lips tickled her small palm. The homestead had flourished under their care. A larger barn now stood near the original structure, housing 4 horses and 2 milk cows. A chicken coop provided fresh eggs, and Zara's kitchen garden yielded vegetables throughout the growing season. Adam had built an addition to the cabin, a bright, airy room where Zara could work on her increasingly sought-after sketches and paintings. Her art had found an appreciative audience beyond Promise Creek. A gallery owner in Helena had seen her work during a visit to the territorial capital, and now displayed her landscapes and portraits prominently. The income from her art, combined with Adam's horse breeding business, had given them a comfortable life. But the true richness came from the love that had grown between them, a love tested by Hargrove's trial, strengthened through the building of their home, and deepened with the birth of their daughter. As Zara watched Adam swing little Moira up onto his shoulders, his face alight with joy, she thought about how differently her life might have turned out. Had she boarded that wagon bound for Hargrove's ranch, she would never have known this happiness, this freedom, this love. Adam caught her watching and smiled, that special smile he reserved only for her. He said something to Moira and started toward the porch, the little girl still perched happily on his shoulders. "Mama!" Moira called, reaching out her chubby hands. "Papa show horse." "I saw, darling," Zara replied, setting aside her sketchbook to take her daughter as Adam carefully lifted her down. "Were you a brave girl?" Moira nodded enthusiastically, her dark curls so like her father's bouncing with the motion. "Brave like Papa." Adam sat beside Zara on the porch step, his arms slipping naturally around her waist. "I'd say brave like her mother," he corrected, pressing a kiss to Zara's temple. "The bravest woman I know." Zara leaned into his embrace. Moira settled contentedly in her lap. "I wasn't brave that day you stopped the wagon," she admitted. "I was terrified." "Courage isn't the absence of fear," Adam said thoughtfully. "It's acting despite it. You chose to leave everything familiar, to trust a stranger, to build a new life. That takes remarkable courage." "I had help," Zara reminded him, her hand finding his. "A rather handsome cowboy who seemed determined to rescue a damsel in distress." Adam chuckled. "As I recall, you weren't exactly the passive damsel type. You elbowed Hargrove pretty decisively when it counted." The mention of Hargrove no longer brought fear or anger. The man had been convicted of Clara's murder and would spend the rest of his life in prison. Justice had been served, and with it had come healing for Adam and closure for Clara's memory. "Papa story?" Moira requested, her small face hopeful. She was at the age where stories, especially those told in her father's deep, expressive voice, were the height of entertainment. "What story would you like, Princess?" Adam asked, lifting her onto his knee. "Mama Wagon story," came the prompt reply. It was her favorite tale, though told in simplified terms appropriate for a child. Adam's eyes met Zara's over their daughter's head, sharing a silent moment of understanding. "Well," he began, "once upon a time there was a brave and beautiful lady who was being forced to go on a journey she didn't want to take." As Adam wove the tale of their beginning transformed into a child's adventure story, with a happy ending, Zara felt a familiar warmth spread through her chest. This was the legacy they were creating. Not just a home or a family, but a story of courage, of choices freely made, of love discovered in the act of standing up for what was right. When Adam finished the story with "and they lived happily ever after," Moira clapped her hands in delight. "Again, Papa." "Later, sweetheart," Zara intervened, noticing the shadows lengthening across the yard. "It's almost time for supper." As they went inside, Zara paused at the threshold to look back at the land that had become her haven. In the distance, she could see the trail that led toward Promise Creek, the path that connected their peaceful homestead to the wider world. She thought of the wagon that had once waited to take her away from everything she knew, and how fate in the form of a principled cowboy with steady hands and a wounded heart had intervened. How a journey that began in fear had transformed into one of love. How wheels that were supposed to carry her to captivity had instead been stopped, allowing her to find true freedom. Adam appeared beside her, Moira now settled at the table with a wooden toy. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked softly. Zara turned to him, this man who had changed the course of her life with a single act of courage. "I was just thinking about wagons and journeys, and how sometimes the most important trip is the one you don't take." Understanding dawned in Adam's eyes. He drew her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that still held all the passion of their beginning, now deepened by the years they had shared. "I'm glad you didn't take that journey," he murmured against her lips. And I'm grateful every day for the one we're on together. Zara smiled up at him, her heart full. As am I, my love, as am I. Inside their home, the fire crackled welcomingly in the hearth. Their daughter's sweet voice called for them. Outside, the Montana sky was painted with the golden hues of sunset, promising another day to come. And on the horizon, no wagon waited to take Zara away. Instead, there was only the path she had chosen, the life she had built, and the love she had found when a determined cowboy had stopped the wheels of fate and given her the freedom to choose her own destiny.